Welcome to the Tackling College Sports Podcast, the definitive resource to help you navigate your way to play college-level sports. Here are your hosts, Chris Legates and Mark Franco, where they want you, the TCS Nation, to be your best.
Welcome, TCS Nation, and thanks for tuning in to the Tackling College Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Franco. Next to me is my co-host. Don't throw butter-drenched langostino on white bread, charge him $18 and call it a lobster roll, Chris Legates. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here in dreary Connecticut with you today, Mark.
Yeah, so listen, we're 2 years plus, right?
Yes.
With Tackling College Sports?
Yes.
Have never had a football guest on?
We have not until today.
We have a great coach from a big-time program, welcoming Mick Yokitis, wide receiver coach for U.S. Naval Academy. Thanks for joining us, Mick. We're happy to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking your time. We know you're just coming off a long stint on the road, and again, we appreciate you being here with us.
Absolutely.
Mick, can you take our listeners back to when you graduated from Naval Academy in 2006 and walk us through your career to your current position as an assistant coach of wide receivers at your alma mater?
Sure thing. So when I graduated the Naval Academy, I commissioned into the Marine Corps, where I spent my first year in the Marine Corps active duty. And then after my first year, I was medically retired. So I went up to our prep school. We call it NAPS, the Naval Academy Prep School. Spent 4.5 years there. My first year I was the offensive coordinator. And my last 3.5 years, I actually was the head football coach there. From there, came down to the Naval Academy, where I've been the last 6 seasons now as a wide receiver coach. And this last year, I actually ran our kickoff unit as well.
Wow. Hey, Mick, can you tell us what have been some of the toughest challenges, even though we're talking about a young career, as it relates to coaching football?
Yeah, I think the toughest challenge that all coaches face today is the players we coach are a lot different than they used to be. You have to be willing to adjust your coaching techniques to fit your players. All your players are different, I believe, and I think you need to coach them all differently while still holding them accountable to the standard that you want. I think it's our job as coaches to find ways to get the best out of our guys.
Is it so that difference? Would you say that it's a tougher job on you guys, or am I reading into that?
I would say so. I think back in the day when I was growing up playing sports, the common thing was you yelled at your players, and they all responded to it. Nowadays, some kids don't respond well to being yelled at. Some you have to talk to. Some you can't yell at. So you really have to learn your players. Where I think the old school way of coaching was it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And now I think to be a good coach now, I think you really have to adjust to your kids, and find what makes them tick. You can't just say, this is how I've done it as a coach, so this is how I'm going to do it. I think you have to adjust to fit your kids.
So you've got basically a coaching hat, and you've got the psychologist hat.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow. Excellent. Chris, go ahead.
First of all, Mick, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for your service to our country as well in the Marine Corps.
Absolutely.
And as my background is 25 years now, I've been a college soccer coach. So what you're saying rings so true to me. I almost use it word for word when people ask me about the differences of coaching players, even 10 years ago, how it's changed. And you're spot on, I think, with your assessment of saying you have to be adaptable now. And if you have 20 players that you're working with, you have 20 different needs, and you have to do 20 different things with them. So I totally agree with you, and I like what you said about that. Now, you just recently got off the road from recruiting, and when you're looking to fill positions at the Naval Academy, what is it that you're looking for in a recruit, both from the academic and the athletic standpoint?
I think for us at the Naval Academy, we're unique, and we're very different than every other school in the country. So when I go out recruiting, the first thing I'm looking for is a great person. I think a lot of coaches overlook that, and they look at the player first, and then they go back and ask the coach questions about his character. For us, the number one most important thing we're going to find is a great person. So if that means taking a little bit less talented player, we're going to do that every time.
And our podcast, Mick, is geared towards that high school student athlete that wants to continue their athletic career at whatever the next level may be. What do you think are some of the common denominators that you believe all college athletes need to be in tune with, regardless of, let's say, the level that they're playing at?
Sure. I think this is really simple, and I preach it to my players on a regular basis. First, they have to be the hardest workers. Second, they have to have a positive attitude. And last, I think is really important, they just need to be coachable. And to me, all these things, and we all know it, requires zero talent.
And when you're watching players in their, whether it's in their training sessions or on the field playing, what little things are you looking for to kind of find those points that you just touched upon?
I think what I look for is on the football, being the wide receiver coach, there's a lot of plays that our guys aren't involved in the play directly, where they're running backside. And I'm looking for that guy that, even though 99% of the time his block is going to be irrelevant, the guy that's always going to hustle. I'm looking for the guy that after he drops a pass, his head doesn't go down. He keeps his head up and he's ready for the next play. To me, that's really, really important. And it's kind of amazing to me how many kids these days aren't able to do those little things.
Mm-hmm. And when you speak of coachability and character, Mick, again, when you see practices or you see games, what little things do you see that may tell you this person is of good character, or this someone is coachable, or let's say even on the flip side that they may not have that good character or may not be coachable?
Sure. I think a coachable kid, to me, is a very selfless kid. Is a kid that you're able to ask them to do something, maybe even change position, and he immediately says, "Yes, sir, anything for the team." We're big on the team here and being selfless. There's little things you can ask kids, and just by their instant reaction, you'll know pretty quickly if they're all in for the team or if they're more about themselves.
Excellent. Mark?
Hey, Mick, before I go on with the next question, the topic of character that you brought up with Chris, I'm just curious. We have asked this just about of every guest that we've had on this podcast, is how you all handle social media. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have a set of rules? Do you have a department? Do you have a person that is handling that? We always think it's important for at least a high school student who's looking to go on to be aware of this.
Yeah, and our rules at the Naval Academy are pretty simple. Our head coach is a simple man, and his thing is always choose the right for the guys. And we monitor their social media, but to be honest, we haven't had an issue in a lot of years with it. So for us, I guess, maybe some other places, other schools, I see that kids are posting stuff that we wouldn't like. We've talked to our guys, and I think our seniors do a great job of policing it and letting the younger guys know how to use it, to use it the right way.
And how about as far as a recruit goes? You've got, let's say, a kid that's got all the talent in the world. Assume he's got good character, and then you take a look at his Instagram or his Twitter, whatever he's on, and you see some things there. How do you all handle that type of aspect?
Yeah, that's one of the first things we look at once we start recruiting guys. And if we don't like what they're posting on their social media, we're going to call them up and we're going to say, listen, the United States Naval Academy is no longer going to recruit you. So I've dropped a handful of kids over my career because of things they posted on their Twitter or Instagram.
That's got to be a devastating call to receive.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think kids are getting more educated in it because you're not seeing it as much anymore, at least the guys I'm recruiting. not seeing it very much.
Yeah, you hope so. It seems that even when we do some of these live events, that part always either elicits some chuckles or I'm not, it almost seems like perhaps they're not taking it seriously. And I'm glad to hear that, at least from your end, it seems to be that that's the opposite, that they are actually taking it seriously. Excellent. So, Mick, with many student athletes focusing on one sport these days, can you give us your take and perhaps even the program's take on the pros and cons of a multi-sport athlete?
Sure. I think there are way more pros than cons with kids that play multiple sports. I think there have been a lot of studies that prove it benefits kids to be involved in multiple sports. The first thing, I think, it helps them from getting burned out of their sport.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe if a kid is playing multiple sports, he will have a bigger upside when he gets to college. He may be a little behind X's and O's, but I think the other benefits outweigh the negatives. And just for us, a couple examples that we look for are offensive and defensive linemen. We love for them to be wrestlers in high school. And for me, being a wide receiver coach, I love when a wide receiver plays basketball because to me, the skill of rebounding is a lot like high pointing a football.
Sure.
And so those are just a couple examples, for us being a big-time college football program where we think it's beneficial for kids to play multiple sports.
So from your standpoint, year-round, one sport, not really your favorite choice?
Yes, my personal opinion, I don't think it's a good thing. I think they should do other sports.
Yeah, agreed. Chris?
Mick, when you talk about the recruiting process, how does the Naval Academy want to hear from their potential student athletes? And what do you think potential student athletes should or shouldn't do when it comes to contacting you or any college coaches in the recruiting process?
For me personally, I really don't care how the student athlete contacts me. My big thing is the accessible. Am I able to get a hold of him? Now, I'd like to talk to him on the phone if I could, but I'm a realist and I understand this generation is the Twitter and text messaging and Instagram. So I understand that. So if they contact me through those sites, I understand and I'll talk to them through it. But I would much rather prefer a telephone call. And the one thing I have done with certain kids, I've stopped recruiting a few kids that I've tried to call on the phone and I can't get a hold of. Then they'll shoot me a text message back 2 minutes later, because they'd rather text. I have stopped recruiting a few kids because of that.
That's a great point, and it's something that student athletes should be totally aware of. Have you ever gotten the emails with the wrong school or calling you by the wrong name?
I've gotten some of them.
And typically what happens to that prospective student athlete?
I pretty much write them off.
Yep. When you look at the Naval Academy, and it's obviously one of the premier institutions, if not the premier institution in the country, how is the recruiting strategy of the Academy's football program, let's say, different than the majority of your competitors? And is it easier or harder to attract those top student athletes to the Naval Academy?
Sure. I think we are looking for the total package. We don't just look for great players. We're looking for great leaders, great students, great people. But like I said earlier, I don't think that's always the case for other schools. I think the fact that our guys, upon graduation, have to serve 5 years in the military makes it a lot harder for us to recruit some of the bigger name kids. But when you think about it, it may actually help us because we don't have as many headaches that the bigger schools have.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last decade now, we are ranked the 20th best college football team in the country. So that success is hard to argue with.
Wow.
And in getting those top players and it being a top 20 school, the recruiting process is obviously vastly different with the scholarship money and our lack of there. Have you found that that's kept you from getting some of the top name talent, even though maybe academically they do qualify?
It has, for sure.
Mark.
Mick, you touched upon this earlier, but if you could indulge us here. Since the beginning of your career as a coach, how have things changed for you as it relates to the recruiting process?
No, sure. Recruiting has changed a lot since I first started coaching. I think the first thing is coaches are starting to recruit these kids at such a young age now. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it's because the video systems are a lot better now, to where the kids have film. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Huddle. That's what we use.
Yeah.
Okay, so we use Huddle to watch film, and it's just so easy to watch a lot of players' film in a short amount of time. To where back in the day, you had to wait for a DVD or even a VHS tape to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure that's a good thing or not, but with technology always changing, recruiting is going to constantly change, and right now it's like an arms race in college football, to where everybody's just trying to keep up with the Benjamins. And every year it's something different, and that someone comes up with the latest and greatest thing.
How about as far as it relates to what you used to do with camps?
As far as bringing kids to come to camp at your school?
Yeah. Is that, what's the thought process there?
We still have camps, and we like to get kids on campus. I think the good thing about a camp is, one, you get to evaluate them, but two, the kid gets to see your institution, and you can start selling the Naval Academy to them. So I think it's good to have them to come see them play and perform, but even more importantly for us, we can sell the Naval Academy. The Naval Academy is a place that you really have to come see with your own eyes.
And I'm sure it doesn't hurt having the current players speaking to them over the week or weekend, and obviously referring back to you guys.
Absolutely. We always tell recruits our best selling point is our players. Just visiting with those guys. They're the ones going through it.
Right. Chris?
Mick, in looking at the recruiting process, and we just talked about the past versus the present, do you advise a student athlete to use a recruiting service? Do you at the Naval Academy subscribe to those, or do you think in a lot of ways that they're a waste of money?
I personally think they're a waste of money, because if I'm going to recruit a football player, I'm going to call his coach. I'm not going to rely on a recruiting service or a street agent. I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to his coach.
There's still nothing better than getting a one-on-one conversation with somebody who obviously knows them about their character and their ability as well, right?
Correct. I think the coach is the best person to talk to, and I know nowadays there are a lot of kids using services, and I get a lot of phone calls from the services, and I'll take the call and listen to it. But immediately, the second I hang up, I'm going to get on the phone with that kid's coach and ask him to give me his thoughts about the kid.
And you spoke of video. How important do you find video in the whole process? And if you were to spend money at all on the recruiting process, Mick, would you advise it to be in the video part of it?
Yeah, I think the video part of it is next level. I think you can get a lot accomplished with the huddle, with the systems in place right now. Sometimes I think it's better to just go online and watch kids than to almost go on the road and go see them. Because you can see a lot more kids on film than you can go get to when you're driving around in your car.
And when we talk about how the evolution of the recruiting process has occurred, especially over the last 10 or 15 years, and like I said myself now, I'm 25 years into the college coaching circuit now as well. But this is a question I ask all the time, and I love getting a different perspective on it. But what would you be as the advice that you would give to a parent about what their role is in the student athlete's recruiting process and their son or daughter's recruiting process?
First of all, I do think parents play a very important role in the recruiting process, because a decision is probably the most important decision their son or daughter is going to make. My advice to the parents would be to just help educate your kid, but at the same time, don't pressure them into going to a certain school because you like it at the end of the day, it's your son or daughter who has to go to that institution for 4, maybe 5 years. I know at our place, most of the kids that have left the Naval Academy will tell us the main reason they came was to make mom and dad happy.
Wow. And the prestige that's involved with the Naval Academy, Mick, when you bring a recruit and their parents into the office, and you obviously have shown them the great campus, and you've talked about the great things of your program, the parts of your program, are you still seeing at times the parent act as an agent of sorts for the student athlete?
Yeah, you do see it some, where the parent is the one asking all the questions. They're the one trying to shop their son around, and the son's just sitting in the back. I personally don't like it. So what I try to do is I try to make sure I get the recruit more involved in the questions that I'm asking, and kind of get them away from the parents a little bit to talk to them, just kind of see how they feel about everything.
Right. We actually had a guest on recently, Mick, who told us a story that I've actually started to put into my own recruiting principles as well, where they separate the parents from the kid, and if they're going to dinner, the parents go with maybe an assistant coach, and the head coach and the perspective, they go together so that they can get to know each other a little bit better, and things of that nature. I found that it's been very helpful.
Yeah, that's exactly how we do it. When we bring kids in on official visits, we separate the kids and the parents, and we get the kids with our players, and then the parents with the coaches.
Well, so far, Mick, you've really answered the easy questions, but now we're going to put you on the hot seat. A lot of coaches have folded under this line of questioning. This is the getting to know you portion of the interview. Here's Mark.
Okay.
Please excuse the music.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
Okay, Mick, enough of that tomfoolery. Mick, if we were to search your phone, what would be the top 3 played songs or artists?
You would see a lot of country music, and I'm also a big Bob Marley fan.
Oh, no kidding.
Okay.
Excellent.
What about country? Who would we find on there?
I really don't have one in particular I listen to. I'm just a big Pandora guy, so I listen to all of them.
All right.
Oh, you get on all the channels of it? Yeah.
I really like Sam Hunt is really blowing up. Zach Brown Band.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got a lot of country favorites.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Next, who is the most famous or infamous person you have in your contact list?
And this is a tough one for me because I don't like dropping names, but probably Roger Staubach.
I figured. I was wondering about that. Yeah.
That's big time. Yeah, that's big time. Wow. Number 3, do you have a favorite quote or quotes that you like to use?
Yeah, my favorite quote is a quote by Gandhi, and it goes, "Live if you were to die tomorrow, learn if you will live forever." So to me, it's you have one life to live, go live it to the fullest, take chances. And at the same time, for me personally, I'm in a constant pursuit of trying to improve myself. I don't ever want to feel like I'm getting complacent. I always feel like there's something to learn out there.
That's a great one. All right, next. Can you give the listeners a little-known fact about yourself?
I think if I'm not the most competitive person in the world, I'm one of them. My wife and I are playing cards or doing anything. I'm going to do everything in my power to try to win. And that's just me. Really, anything I do, I'm going to be super competitive in it.
Yep. Good. That's awesome.
Your wife and my wife would get along real well. Next, who's been the biggest influence in your life?
For sure, my parents. They've taught me a lot of things in my lifetime. And I really appreciate everything they've done for me. And I'll give a special shout out to my mom because I think she's the kindest, most caring person that I've ever met. She would do anything for anybody and ask for nothing in return.
That's great stuff.
That's outstanding.
Number 6, if you were to have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would you choose?
Probably have to be John Wooden. Because not only is he in my opinion, the greatest coach that ever lived. He's also one of the greatest men that ever lived. I just love the principles he lived by and the way he's always went about his business.
Great choice. Mick, if you weren't coaching college football, what do you think you might be doing?
I'd probably be in the business world, hopefully working for myself. And then I would definitely be coaching either high school football or basketball to underprivileged kids.
Excellent. Number 8. What is one thing you believe that others might think is crazy?
Here's something that I really believe in, and I think every American, male and female, should have to serve at least 2 years in the military. I really believe our country would be a much better place on this.
We're both shaking our heads in agreement with you right now.
That.
Yeah.
I wish the video was on right now. And then lastly, Mick, do you have any web-based sites or tools that you rely on or enjoy using, either for work or personal use?
Nope. I'm a simple person, probably a little bit old school, so I'm not too into that stuff.
Scratch the last answer.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mick, you got through this pretty well. I don't know if you're broken a sweat over there, but a lot of coaches in the past have been on the hot seat, and we've had to towel them down, and we've had to get the oxygen out, but looks like you handled that one pretty well.
Come on, he's a military guy.
Yeah, that's right. Military won't fold under questioning right there. That's right.
That's right.
I have 2 questions left for you. One, Mick, would be, can you describe a little bit about what it's like to be a student athlete playing Division I? What's the day-to-day like for your players at the Naval Academy?
Sure. Our day-to-day for our guys is quite busy. I'll just talk you through just a day in the life of a midshipman. You wake up around 6:15, 6:30. 7 o'clock is breakfast. I'll take you back. You have a formation first, and breakfast at 7. And then classes start in the morning. There's 4 classes that are 50 minutes long. And then for our football players at lunchtime, we squeeze in a 45-minute position meeting. And then they go back to class for 2 more periods. And then class ends, and our guys literally sprint over to football, get taped, get dressed. We'll have a 10, 15-minute special teams meeting around the practice field. Practice for about an hour and a half. Finish practice. And then some days we lift. Some guys have to get treatment. Around 7 o'clock is dinner for our guys. When they finish dinner, it's quiet study from about 8 to 11. So that's kind of the normal day for a midshipman. It's pretty busy.
That's one heck of a day, and I'm sure by the time the head hits the pillow, it's done for the day for sure.
My wife still jokes with me. She says, even to this day, the second I lay down in bed, I'm sleeping.
And my last question is, can you explain to our listeners what an Army-Navy football game is like?
The Army-Navy game is the biggest college rivalry there is out there.
100%.
When I talk about it, I get goosebumps. So right now I have goosebumps on my arms. As a coach,
Awesome.
It's literally the only game that I get goosebumps for. And we played at Ohio State, Penn State, South Carolina, Notre Dame. So we played at a lot of big stages, and there's still nothing like the Army-Navy game. I think every American, if you're a fan of football, even if you aren't, should try to get to that game, put it on your bucket list, because it's really special.
And what's the week of preparation like before that game?
You know how it is as a coach. You try to keep your guys as calm as you can and try to go through the same routines, but it's different. You know, as much as we try to keep things the same, there's a lot going on at school. There's different pranks going on. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And they all know the magnitude of the game. But we try our hardest to keep things the same for them.
And fall of 2017, how's the Naval Academy looking? How are we going to be?
We finished spring ball a couple months ago. We had a good spring. We still have a long ways to go, but I know we're very encouraged right now where we're at. We're looking forward to a great summer, great off season. Our guys are going to be working out here to do some other things. There's some other training they have to do in the summer. But we're excited where we're at. And really looking forward to August coming around when we get to get back out on the practice field.
That's awesome, and good luck to you and the staff. Mark?
Mick, as we draw to a close here, I know you're busy. Just a couple more questions. Do you have anything that you wish to promote with the audience today?
No, sir, I don't.
Excellent. How about any final thoughts or parting words for the listeners?
I just want to, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Mark and Chris, this was great. Hopefully I didn't bore the listeners to death. But just
Not at all.
Not at all.
Just real appreciative for the opportunity to get on and visit with you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it too. And Mick, how about how can listeners get in touch with you? Whether you have your email, web, or I do know you're on Twitter. I did see you there.
Sure, yeah. The best way is email. And the email is myokitis@usna.edu. And then my Twitter is @NavyCoachYo.
Got it. I'll make sure that those go up on the show notes, so anybody that listens to the show, they'll be able to access that and get in touch if they need to. Also, for that Army-Navy game, if there's a couple tickets lying around, you know where to find us.
Hey, guys, I thought I got a couple hundred requests already.
You don't get many requests for that, I'm sure.
You know what, too, Mick, is Mark and I are, as we probably have alluded to a little bit, two big patriots, and again, I said wanted to thank you for your service, but I also to your guys there as well, to everybody who represents this great country. They don't get enough thanks sometimes. So from these guys here, thank you to them and your players as well.
100%.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mick, is it okay if I mention, someone told me that your dad played for some relatively unknown team in New York. Is that sound familiar?
He spent a little bit of time playing for the Jets. He did.
This is the New York Jets, correct?
The New York Jets. So he was
Thank you.
He was a backup there. He was a really good player.
Who was the main quarterback at the time that he was backup?
So you guys know he was behind the legend.
Joe Willie Namath.
The man.
Yeah.
How great is that?
He sure was.
I wanted to squeeze that in and make sure the listeners knew that.
Yeah.
Well, Mick, again, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the dedication. Thanks for the service. And, look forward to following you guys and see, hopefully you have a great fall season.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Before we go, listeners, you can get in touch with us on the web at tacklingcollegesports.com. Email is tacklingcollegesports@gmail.com. Facebook is facebook.com/tacklingcollegesports. Twitter @tacklingcollege, and Instagram tacklingcollege. And until next time, be your best.
Be your best.
Your college sports future awaits. So join the TCS Nation and be your best.